All right, so it's February, and you know what that means, right?
Black History Month.
Exactly. And today we're going deep.
Deep dive.
Yeah, deep dive
Yeah.
into its origins and how it's evolved.
What?
We've got Wikipedia, some articles from history.com, even some cool stuff from the Library of Congress.
Pulling out all the stops.
Pulling out all the stops, yeah. Think of this as like a crash course, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
If you're prepping for a presentation or if you're just curious.
Yeah, because you need more than just the basic facts, right?
Exactly. We're going for those aha moments, those light bulb moments.
Well,
Okay, so most people know it's Black History Month, but did you know it actually started as Negro History Week?
yeah, back in 1926.
1926.
Brainchild of historian Carter G. Woodson.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting, they chose February, right?
Yeah.
Strategically placing it between the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass.
That's what I was thinking. Like, was it a genius PR move to get people's attention? Or was it like genuine respect for those figures? Or maybe both.
It's probably both. It was
Yeah.
an era where Black history was largely absent from mainstream narratives, so Woodson was very strategic.
So it makes sense to use those bigger names to get people's attention. And then
Yeah, to tap into that existing national recognition.
Exactly.
He was a visionary.
That makes sense. But doesn't that also risk overshadowing other really important figures in Black history?
Right.
Like all the focus on those two, it's potentially neglecting the contributions of countless others.
That is a valid point, and that tension continues today. How do you celebrate individual achievements while ensuring a broader, more inclusive understanding?
Yeah.
But back then it was strategic.
He needed a hook.
Needed a hook.
So how did we go from a week to a whole month? Was it gradual or was there like a specific thing?
Well, the shift gained momentum during the civil rights movement of the 1960s. As Black identity and pride moved to the forefront, Black History Month began organically on college campuses.
So it wasn't like a top-down decision.
No.
It was more from like the people who were directly impacted and they were demanding that recognition.
Exactly. And it finally gained official recognition when President Ford declared February Black History Month in 1976.
So that kind of just solidified its place.
Solidified it, yeah.
And it's not just textbooks and classrooms anymore, right?
Absolutely not.
We see it everywhere. Our research mentions celebrations happening in theaters, businesses, huge brands on Instagram are getting in on it.
For sure. And that's where we get into some interesting debates.
It's like, is this widespread commercialization, genuine support, or are these companies just like,
Capitalizing on the occasion.
yeah. I've seen those big campaigns from like Coca-Cola, Google. It's great they're acknowledging it, maybe reaching new audiences,
Yeah.
but it can feel a bit hollow sometimes. Like
Yeah.
they're just checking a box.
That's the crux of the argument.
Yeah.
It's this balance of raising awareness and potentially trivializing a significant occasion.
Yeah.
Some argue that it really detracts from genuine historical learning and reflection.
Yeah, it's like, how do you measure sincerity in that?
That's a tough one, yeah.
Is it about real support for Black communities or is it just a marketing ploy?
I think each individual has to grapple with that when they encounter these campaigns.
Yeah.
Are they prompting genuine engagement or just like fleeting awareness?
That reminds me, I remember that image of the 106-year-old Virginia McLaurin at the White House.
Oh, yeah.
She was so overjoyed to meet President Obama and the First Lady.
That image is very powerful.
Yeah.
It encapsulates the progress made while acknowledging the long road still ahead.
Yeah. What's even more fascinating is this journey toward recognition and understanding is not limited to the U.S.
Right.
I had no idea. Black History Month was celebrated elsewhere.
Oh, yeah. Canada, the UK, Ireland, even some African countries.
Okay, that is surprising.
It is.
What does it tell us that it spread globally? It obviously started in the U.S., but those themes of recognizing historical contributions and pushing for equality must resonate beyond our borders, right?
You're right. The U.S. context is specific, but the core ideas have universal appeal. For example, Canada officially recognized Black History Month in 1995. The UK started in 1987,
Oh, wow.
and that was tied to the centenary of Marcus Garvey's birth.
Interesting.
And it highlights that even the concept of Black itself can have different meanings in different parts of the world.
Can you explain that a little more?
Sure. So in the UK, for example, there's a notion of political Blackness that's more inclusive,
Okay.
encompassing people of color.
So less about a specific ancestry and more about solidarity.
Precisely. And this broader understanding is reflected in the UK's celebrations, which often highlight various communities of color.
That is fascinating. It's a reminder that even seemingly straightforward concepts can have like layers of complexity depending on where you are.
For sure.
And speaking of complexity, our research also mentions that there is some controversy surrounding Black History Month.
Yeah.
Some argue that confining it to just one month can be counterproductive.
Right.
It's like check the box mentality instead of genuine integration.
Exactly.
It's like that Morgan Freeman quote,
Well,
Black history is American history.
right.
So how do we balance this dedicated focus with the need to weave these stories and experiences into our everyday understanding?
That's the tension. The month can be a powerful platform, but it shouldn't be a box that limits engagement. And thankfully, we're seeing more efforts to promote deeper dives year-round. For example, the ASALH, the organization founded by Carter G. Woodson, select a theme each year to guide explorations of Black history.
Right, the themes. I love how they've evolved over the years, from an early focus on education to more modern topics like Black health and wellness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a theme for virtually every aspect of the Black experience, prompting deeper exploration and understanding.
Some of those themes are so relevant. Like in 2017, the theme was the crisis in Black education, which sadly still resonates deeply in many communities.
Unfortunately, yes.
And 2025's focus on African Americans and labor seems especially relevant
Yes.
to current conversations about economic justice.
Absolutely. It's a theme that makes you think, connecting work to the Black experience throughout history, from forced labor during slavery to the ongoing fight for economic equality.
Wow, it's incredible how much ground Black History Month covers. And our research also highlights some amazing work being done by the Library of Congress. For instance, there's this exhibit called In Slavery's Wake, Making Black Freedom in the World, that explores how Black communities shaped their own freedom amidst oppression.
That one's a must-see. And then there's the Russell Lee photo collection, documenting the lives of coal miners in the 1940s, many of whom were Black.
Oh, wow.
And those images really humanize the people who literally fuel the nation's progress.
It's so important to see those individual stories
Yes.
within the broader historical narrative. And those are just a couple of examples from the Library of Congress. We'll be sure to include links to more of the resources in the show notes so you can explore further.
It's really amazing how much is packed into just one month, and how those resources can open doors to year-round learning.
We've gone from basic facts about Black History Month to a global perspective, uncovered controversies, and explored thought-provoking themes. What stands out to you as particularly significant in all of this?
I think what strikes me the most is how dynamic Black history is. It's not just about the past. It's directly connected to the issues we face today. And that's particularly evident in the theme for Black History Month 2025, African Americans and labor.
You're right, that theme feels particularly timely. Let's unpack that a bit further. What are some of the key historical moments or movements that come to mind when you think about the evolution of work for Black Americans?
Well, we could start with the most brutal chapter, the forced labor of slavery, a system specifically designed to exploit and dehumanize Black people.
It's a stark reminder of how deeply intertwined labor is with the Black experience in America, even from the very beginning.
And as we move into the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, we see formerly enslaved people striving for economic autonomy, but facing incredible obstacles like sharecropping and blatantly discriminatory labor practices.
It's heartbreaking to think about how these systems perpetuated inequality even after slavery was officially abolished. It's like one form of oppression was replaced with another.
Exactly. And these struggles continue through the Jim Crow era, with Black workers often relegated to the most dangerous, low-paying jobs, systematically denied access to unions, and facing constant discrimination.
It's like this theme of labor inequality runs like a thread through all of American history, connecting those past injustices to the ongoing fight for economic justice that we're still grappling with today.
Precisely. And we can't forget about the Great Migration, when millions of Black Americans left the South seeking better opportunities in the North and West. This massive movement reshaped the landscape of labor in America.
But those migrants didn't always find the equality and opportunity they were seeking, right?
Sadly, no. They often encountered persistent segregation, discrimination in housing and employment, and found themselves trapped in low-wage jobs despite their hopes for a better life. It's a reminder that the fight for fair labor practices has been a long and arduous journey.
And that journey is far from over.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the Civil Rights Movement, a pivotal period where activists fought not only for equal rights under the law, but also for economic justice. Think about the sanitation workers' strike in Memphis in 1968, where Dr. King was tragically assassinated. That struggle was fundamentally about dignity, respect, and the right to a fair wage.
It's such a powerful reminder that the fights for racial justice and economic justice are inseparable. They're two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And as we move into the present day, we see these same threads woven into contemporary movements like Black Lives Matter, which addresses the systemic racism that continues to plague Black communities, including their economic well-being.
It's about understanding how historical forces continue to shape the lives of Black Americans today, and how those historical struggles are still relevant in our current conversations about inequality.
And this theme, African Americans and labor, provides a powerful framework for examining those forces, from the past to the present. It underscores that Black history is not just a collection of events. It's a living narrative that shapes our present and future.
It's about acknowledging that Black history is not just something we learn about in February. It's an integral part of our nation's story and an ongoing journey towards justice and equality.
And as we continue this deep dive, we'll explore other facets of this complex and evolving history.
Up next, we'll delve into the powerful theme of Black resistance, examining how Black Americans have persistently fought for their rights and freedoms throughout history.
That's a topic that reveals incredible courage, resilience, and the enduring spirit of those who came before us. I'm excited to share some of these stories with you.
Black resistance. It's a powerful phrase. You know, when I hear that, I think of like Harriet Tubman,
Yeah,
Frederick Douglass, those figures who risked everything to fight for freedom.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Those figures are essential to understanding Black resistance. But it's important to remember that resistance isn't always like grand gestures or famous speeches.
Yeah.
It can be quiet acts of defiance,
Yeah.
community organizing, even just preserving cultural traditions in the face of oppression.
That's such a good point. It really expands our understanding of what resistance can look like.
Exactly. And when we zoom out and look at the big picture, we see how Black resistance has manifested in so many ways.
Yeah.
For instance, during slavery, resistance took the form of running away on the Underground Railroad, right?
Right.
Staging rebellions, or even slowing down work as a form of protest.
Those acts of resistance during such a brutal system, is hard to imagine the risks they took for even like the smallest chance of freedom.
Absolutely. And even after emancipation, Black resistance continued. Communities rallied together to fight for their civil rights. They challenged segregation, demanding access to education, housing, those employment opportunities.
Right, and our sources highlight some like pivotal moments in that struggle. The Montgomery bus boycott, right, where Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat on a segregated bus sparked a movement.
Yeah. That's a perfect example of how individual acts of defiance can spark collective action and lead to lasting change.
Yeah.
And organizations like the NAACP played a crucial role during this era.
Yeah, they provided that platform for Black voices to be heard.
Right. They strategically fought for civil rights through legal challenges and just tireless advocacy.
Yeah, leading to like significant legal victories like Brown v. Board of Education
Yep.
that desegregated schools.
Yeah. And resistance wasn't only about changing laws, right?
Yeah.
It was about shifting hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Think about the power of Dr. King's speeches, the freedom rides, the marches and demonstrations that really brought the issue of racial injustice to the forefront.
It's so powerful.
It is.
It reminds us that change doesn't happen overnight,
Right.
but through like the sustained effort, the collective action, and just the courage to speak truth to power.
Absolutely. And Black resistance continues to evolve.
Yeah.
We see it in movements like Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
challenging police brutality and systemic racism,
All right.
and the ongoing fight for voting rights and economic justice.
So the struggle for equality is far from over,
It's not over.
and the fight takes on new forms as the challenges themselves evolve.
Exactly. It's about understanding how those historical forms of resistance inform and inspire the movements we see today.
So for you, the listener, what does this mean? I think it's about recognizing that profound legacy of Black resistance, honoring those who came before us, and understanding how their struggles continue to shape us today.
It's about asking yourself how you can contribute to the fight for justice and equality in your own way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a grand gesture.
Right.
It can be small acts of kindness, speaking up against injustice, or even just taking the time to educate yourself and others.
Keeping that spirit alive.
Yes. And speaking of resources that can help us do that, the Library of Congress has some incredible online exhibits that offer a glimpse into the lived experiences of those who resisted oppression.
Yeah, and there are tons of museums and historical societies across the country
Hundreds.
with dedicated exhibitions focused on Black resistance.
For sure. The National Museum of African American History and Culture in D.C. is an incredible resource.
Definitely. These institutions provide a space to learn, reflect, and connect with these powerful stories.
And they remind us that Black history is not just about the past. It's a living narrative that continues to shape our world.
Absolutely. Now, as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's shift our focus to another important aspect of Black History Month, the yearly themes that guide our exploration and discussion.
These themes provide a framework for deepening our understanding of specific aspects of the Black experience.
Yeah, they highlight the diversity of experiences, accomplishments, and challenges.
Sure.
I'm so intrigued by some of the more recent themes,
Right.
like 2017's focus on the crisis in Black education, which sadly still feels relevant today.
Unfortunately, yes.
And the theme for 2025, African Americans and Labor, invites us to consider that complex and often challenging history of work for Black Americans.
A theme that connects past struggles to contemporary issues of economic justice.
Exactly, highlighting the need for equity and opportunity.
Exactly. And by exploring these themes, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the richness and complexity of Black history
Yeah.
and recognize its relevance to our lives today.
Let's delve into a few of these themes, starting with the 2017 focus on the crisis in Black education. What are some of the key historical factors that contributed to this crisis, and how do those factors continue to impact educational outcomes today?
Well, we can trace the roots of this crisis back to the very foundations of our nation.
Oh, wow.
During slavery, Black people were denied access to education.
Wow.
It was seen as a threat to the established order.
It's hard to even imagine that, just being denied such a fundamental right.
It was a brutal reality, and even after emancipation, access to quality education remained a challenge.
Yeah.
Segregation, underfunding of Black schools, and discriminatory practices created a system that perpetuated that inequality.
It's like they were set up for failure.
Precisely. And these historical inequities continue to cast a long shadow.
Yeah.
We see it in the persistent achievement gap between Black and white students, the disproportionate rates of school discipline, and the underrepresentation of Black students in higher education.
Right. It's such a complex issue with deep historical roots. It requires like systemic solutions.
Absolutely. And that's where understanding that historical context is so crucial.
Yeah.
It helps us identify those root causes and advocate for meaningful change.
And moving on to the 2025 theme, African Americans and Labor, it feels like a natural progression from the discussion on education.
It does, yeah.
Because access to quality education is often seen as that pathway
Right.
to better employment.
Absolutely. But this theme also prompts us to consider the broader historical forces that have shaped the experiences of Black workers in America.
Right. What are some of those key historical moments or movements that come to mind when you think about this theme?
We already talked about the legacy of slavery and those systems of exploitation, like sharecropping. That emerged during Reconstruction.
Yeah.
But we can also look at moments like the Great Migration, when millions of Black Americans left the South seeking those better economic opportunities.
Yeah, that was a massive movement,
It was.
driven by hope for a better life, but also pushed by those harsh realities of discrimination and limited opportunities in the South.
Exactly. And while many Black migrants found new opportunities in the North, they also encountered that persistent discrimination in housing, employment, and wages.
So it's like they escaped one form of oppression only to encounter another.
Right, and that brings us to the Civil Rights Movement, where activists fought tirelessly for equal employment opportunities and fair labor practices.
Yeah.
Think about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin.
Huge victory. But it didn't erase the legacy of discrimination or guarantee that economic equality.
No, it did not, and the fight continues. And this theme, African Americans and labor, invites us to examine the ways in which those historical forces continue to shape the economic realities of Black Americans today.
It's about understanding those connections, acknowledging the ongoing challenges, and working towards a more just and equitable future.
And I think one of the most powerful aspects of Black History Month is its ability to connect the past to the present,
Yeah.
to illuminate those struggles and triumphs that have shaped our nation and continue to inspire us.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the origins of Black History Month to its global reach, the controversies and debates, and those thought-provoking yearly themes,
Right.
what are some key takeaways you'd like our listener to walk away with?
I hope our listener comes away with a deeper appreciation for the richness and complexity of Black history
I love that.
and recognizes that it's not just a chapter in a textbook,
Yeah.
but a living narrative that shapes our world today.
Black history is American history. It's a story that continues to unfold.
And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a challenge. How can you take what you've learned and apply it to your own life? How can you become an active participant in the ongoing struggle for justice and equality?
It can feel overwhelming, but where do we even begin?
It starts with awareness, understanding that historical context and those systemic forces at play, and then taking action, however small it may seem.
Okay.
Educate yourself. Engage in conversations about race and inequality support organizations working towards social justice. These small steps can collectively create a ripple effect.
Yeah, I love that idea of a ripple effect.
Yeah,
It reminds us that even individual actions contribute to something much larger.
absolutely. And as we conclude this deep dive, I want to emphasize that Black history is not just about the past. It's about shaping a better future. It's about carrying the torch of those who came before us, who fought tirelessly for freedom, equality, and justice.
Their stories inspire us, challenge us,
They do.
and remind us that the fight for a more just world is an ongoing journey.
And it's a journey we must all take together. So keep learning, keep questioning, keep engaging, and never stop striving to make a positive impact.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Black History Month. We hope you found it insightful, engaging, and thought-provoking.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The exploration of Black history should be a lifelong pursuit, a journey that enriches our understanding of ourselves, our nation, and the world around us.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going. You know, it's amazing how Black History Month can spark some really introspective questions.
Yeah.
It's not just about the dates and the names. It's about challenging ourselves to think differently.
That's what makes it so much more than just a month on the calendar.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope our listeners feeling empowered to keep learning, keep asking those tough questions.
Definitely. And we started with the basics, but I think we uncovered so much more along the way.
Oh, we did? Yeah.
We saw how Black History Month went global and some of the debates surrounding it.
The controversies, yeah.
Controversies, yes, and those thought-provoking themes.
I love the themes.
Themes.
They're a great way to keep the conversation going year-round.
Yeah.
And they really highlight how dynamic Black history is.
It's not a static thing.
No, it's constantly evolving, just like the fight for justice and equality.
And that brings us back to your challenge from the last part.
Yes.
How can we as individuals contribute to creating a more just and equitable world?
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming.
It can.
But I think it starts with awareness,
Okay.
with understanding the historical context, the forces at play,
Yeah.
and then it's about taking action, however small it may seem.
Okay.
Educate yourself. Engage in conversations about race and inequality support organizations working for social justice.
Right.
These seemingly small steps can create that ripple effect.
I love that, the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Because it reminds us that individual actions can contribute to something much larger.
And as we conclude this deep dive, I want to emphasize that Black history is not just about the past.
Yeah.
It's about shaping a better future, carrying the torch
Yeah.
of those who came before us who fought for freedom, equality, and justice.
Those stories inspire us,
They do.
challenge us, and remind us that the fight for a more just world is an ongoing journey.
And it's a journey we must all take together. So keep learning, keep questioning, keep engaging, and never stop striving to make a positive impact.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Black History Month. We hope you found it insightful, engaging, and thought-provoking.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The exploration of Black history should be a lifelong pursuit, enriching our understanding of ourselves, our nation, and the world around us.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.